Jasmine Crockett is making headlines after delivering a fiery argument that has sparked a major political debate over Donald Trump, Russia, and the direction of the Republican Party. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Let's break down what happened, why this moment is causing outrage in Washington, and what it could mean for the future of American politics.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. It's so interesting to me that we all swear an oath to the Constitution, and we say that we take that oath seriously, but when it comes into actually doing something that looks like preserving that oath or looks like preserving the Constitution, we get a little wobbly, and I'm not really understanding what's going on. Freedom of press doesn't look like kicking out the Washington Post, or actually the Huffington Post has been kicked out. We know that the Associated Press has been kicked out, and now the Washington Post is not going to allow for op-eds in any way if for some reason they criticize the sitting president of the United States. What this is starting to feel like is a smaller version of Russia. And I am trying to tell you that we are nothing like Russia. We are not supposed to be like Russia, but that is what we've got going on. And I'm sorry, I know that some of my colleagues still struggle with answering the question of who won the election in 2020. And you may have felt a way when you had social media checking people and saying, no, Trump did not win the election in 2020. That is absolutely factual. And unfortunately, because some people got all riled up because they believed the lies, they ended up getting locked up because they decided that they were going to believe the lies. They ended up at the Capitol on January 6th, and they were trying to tear this thing apart because they felt like their country was falling apart in front of their eyes because for whatever reason, there were people in power that were peddling a lie about the election. We also know, and some of y'all may still say that COVID was a hoax. COVID wasn't a hoax. Tell that to the over 1 million people that died under Donald Trump's first watch. It wasn't a hoax. So no, I do believe that it was okay. In fact, I do believe that it was ethically right for social media to check people because you had people that didn't know anything about science and decided that they were going to put out whatever lies or propaganda or conspiracy theories they wanted to, and people died. At some point in time, we have to evaluate what is factual, and I know that facts hurt y'all, and I just wish we could get on the same page, but we do know during the presidential election that the president would not go and participate in anything if fact-checking was going to be a part of it, because he didn't want to be fact-checked. We know that the vice president got upset in his vice presidential debate when he was fact-checked. It used to be a time in this country that we as members of Congress or elected officials thought that it was okay to just tell the truth. Instead, we're pushing conspiracy theories, and some of them are killing people. It's the same thing that we have coming out of Doge. It's the reason that people are dying. It's the reason that farmers are losing their farms, because we continue to peddle conspiracy theories. It is time for us to say, Mr. President, guess what? Russia invaded Ukraine. Can we at least agree on that one? Facts matter. Y'all, this is literally potentially putting us into an international crisis. We may be heading towards the next world war because we have a president that wants to pal around with Putin and wants to do everything to make him feel good, including lying about who invaded who. Mr. Chair, I got a minute left, but I really want to yield to any of my colleagues and ask them if they will say today, very basically, that when it came down to the war in Ukraine, that it was not Ukraine that invaded Russia, it was the other way around. Is there anybody in here that has enough courage to say that Russia invaded Ukraine?
You can have my time.
And this is yet the problem. This is the problem. That is not infringing upon free speech.
Will the gentlelady yield?
I will yield to the right.
Thank you, Ms. Crockett. To be clear, your challenge, I think, was across the aisle, because I think every member on your side of the aisle agrees with the obvious fact that Vladimir Putin ordered the filthy, bloody, imperialistic invasion of Ukraine. And in fact, at the time, Donald Trump as president never denied it. In fact, he praised it. He said it was, quote, an act of genius when Putin ordered the invasion of Ukraine. So I would hope some of our colleagues would consent to at least that historical point, since we think history is so important. There are people who want to relive that in our oversight report.
And therein lies the problem.
The time of the general.
The moment that caught a lot of attention came when Jasmine Crockett challenged lawmakers with a simple question. Do they agree that Russia invaded Ukraine? And according to the discussion, the response was met with silence. No strong public statement, no clear pushback, just hesitation. That silence quickly became the center of a much larger political debate. Critics argued that this hesitation showed how much the Republican Party's position on Ukraine has changed in recent years, especially compared to where many Republican lawmakers stood before Donald Trump returned to the center of American politics. Because if you look back, many Republican politicians were once vocal supporters of Ukraine, arguing that America had a responsibility to stand against Russian aggression. But today, the conversation has shifted dramatically. The same issue that once had broad bipartisan support has now become one of the most politically divided topics in Washington. And this is where the controversy really begins. Supporters of Crockett's argument believe this moment exposed a deeper issue, that some lawmakers may be prioritizing party loyalty over openly challenging a position they once held. They argue that elected officials should be willing to answer difficult questions, even when those answers may conflict with their own party's leadership. But Republicans and Trump supporters would argue that the situation is more complicated. They say their position is not about supporting Russia, but about questioning America's involvement overseas, the amount of money being spent, and what they believe should be the country's priorities. However, regardless of where someone stands politically, this exchange highlights a major reality in American politics. Today, the influence of Donald Trump over the Republican Party has transformed the way many members approach major issues. A question that once seemed straightforward has now become part of a much larger political battle over leadership, foreign policy, and the future direction of the United States. And that leads us to the bigger question. Are politicians changing their views because they genuinely believe circumstances have changed, or because they are following the direction of their party's most powerful figure? Because in politics, silence can sometimes create more headlines than words. And moments like this are exactly why trust, accountability, and transparency remain at the center of the debate. Now I want to hear your thoughts. Do you believe Republican lawmakers have changed their position on Russia and Ukraine because of Donald Trump's influence? Or do you think this is simply a change in foreign policy strategy? Let me know in the comments below.